Hello, my name is Richard Mooney. I'm part of the product management organization for SAP Analytics Cloud. We have a really interesting session today. I'm here with Dermot Byrne. Dermot, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Richard. Thanks. Yes, my name is Dermot Byrne. I'm the managing director of EquiRatings. We're a data analytics company within equestrian sport. And over the last 6 or 7 years, we've been, I suppose, really introducing data and how it's used to that sport. So looking forward to chatting through that today.
So we've a really interesting agenda today. So on the second part of this, we have a product update with some of the most important features that we've got coming up in Analytics Cloud in the next quarter and beyond. But first, we're going to have an introduction from EquiRatings. I personally invited EquiRatings to this show here today because I think they're one of the most interesting and exciting use cases that I've seen with Analytics Cloud, and they have a really great story. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Dermot, and I'll let you tell us a little bit about EquiRatings and what you're doing with Analytics Cloud.
Thanks, Richard. It's always difficult, when we're in the kind of bite-sized pieces to know how far back to go in the story and what angle to approach it from. But in short, we're a small Irish company. We began as two friends who had an idea and who were watching the growth of data analytics across multiple mainstream sports. And equestrian sport, while it's a huge area and well represented in the Olympics and around the world, actually very traditional and didn't have up until certainly in the last 10 years, much later than a lot of sports, didn't have really much use of data. You saw it briefly, and it's one area which is in gambling, in horse racing. But outside of that, the norms which we come to associate with how people set targets, how people view the sport, how people in boardrooms manage the sport, that didn't really exist. So as a very small idea 10 years ago, or even a little bit more, coming out of university, we were looking with primarily with Excel and with really basic metrics. We were trying to say, if we were to put these pieces together, would it tell us anything about the future? Would it tell us anything more about the present? Now, again, these sports, we're talking about Olympic sport. So this particular sport that we began in is called eventing. And it's like a triathlon of equestrian sport. It begins with dressage, which is kind of like the horses dancing. It has show jumping, which is, again, a major sport in itself, but also is part of this triathlon. And then cross country, which is a kind of a test of speed and bravery and requires the horses to jump, huge jumps. And it's probably primarily associated with the UK, with US, New Zealand, Australia, France again. So fairly global as a sport. But again, as a sport, as we began to watch it, we realized that from multiple areas, no matter how simple we were able to take this, people weren't using data at all. They didn't have the data. So we began very slowly to communicate with the audience, just using data that we collected ourselves. And over the last 7 years, that has become multiple partnerships with governing bodies across the world. We've been able to access the data of all of the national databases and the international governing body with a deal that we did with the world governing body of the sport. And through that, we were able to connect, Richard, all of the different siloed data around the world. So every country has its own database, that we became the central source of that. And we met SAP and we began to work with SAP technology in 2017. And it really transformed us from a small Irish startup trying to pull together multiple data sources and not guessing, but using our intuition as to what might happen next. I mean, we've been working with it for probably 4 or 5 years. And when we began to plug that information into, at the time, predictive analytics, it took us about 3 weeks in terms of speed and in terms of output. It just completely revolutionized what we're doing. So probably from that moment on, as we began simulating competitions, simulation of competitions became a huge focus for us through the pandemic when we didn't have live sport, and actually running simulations based on, based on real life data over the last decade. And again, we were the only place that we had that. We were actually able to create kind of virtual sport for the 2 years of the pandemic, which was not only hugely useful for us as a company, but actually for a huge amount of our partners around the world who rely on sponsorship and actually were able to host virtual events. But through very simple pieces within predictive analytics, we found that actually telling people what is going to happen next was interesting, was useful for fans, was useful for the governing bodies, particularly in terms of Olympic teams and trying to select teams and work out where we might be. So it was useful from that point of view. But as data became a little bit more normalized within the sport, the question fairly quickly turned to what, it's okay to tell me that this is what you think is going to happen, or this is what a model thinks is going to happen, but we really want to know why. And that, explainable AI developed that I suppose the questions began to develop first for us from clients around the world, and actually being able to bring in the feature, I suppose, that came with SAC for us, which was that explainable AI, linking it to, I suppose, understanding what the model was telling us, and then in tune with that, planning which element of this performance or of this prediction can I change to change something going forward. So these, what I'm sure you'll be talking about today, and understanding what each of these little feature changes can do for our business, has been hugely beneficial over the last couple of years. So I'm always one, when I see every tiny little feature that we can see changing within SAC, I know that it can have a major impact on each of our products. So from that point of view, Richard, it's been a great journey. It's been one which has taken us from a table tennis table in Ireland to, managing 12 Olympic teams at the last Olympics. Every country in the world uses our rating in terms of risk management. So you have to have a rating showing that your performance, is sufficient to enter that competition from a risk management point of view in equestrian sports as well. So between risk management, Olympics, telling the stories, fantasy games to help fans understand the sport a little bit better, eventing and show jumping have been completely revolutionized by the features and the development that SAC has allowed us to present to fans around the world. So I'll be interested as to what we've seen in 2022 and what we're looking forward to next year.
And the reason why I love that story is that effectively, there was something that didn't exist, which is like the access to this type of insight and data. And then suddenly it existed, but it was valuable to so many different types of consumers. The teams, the riders themselves, the media, the potentially betting companies in future. And it just shows the value of data and how it can be transformative within a world. So it's very, very interesting. And these type of concepts of knowing why, explainable AI, all of these things are really, really important. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through each of the 5 features that we want to talk about within this presentation and explain a little bit of why it's important and what we're actually doing. So the first one is internally, it's been known as Project Story 2.0, but really it's more in the line of what we're doing around optimized story experience. So effectively, for the last couple of years, we've been putting significant amounts of effort into optimizing the story. So improving the performance, improving the usability based on the type of the experience that we see our customers having, and adding new capabilities to the optimized story experience that didn't exist within the classic story experience. And we're coming to the end of that program. The optimized story experience is almost feature equivalent and feature complete relative to the classic story experience. And one of the last things that we decided to do, because it's really, really important, is within Analytics Cloud, we have 3 different methods of creating content. The first one is the story mode, where effectively you can drag and drop, you can configure a story in order to be able to explain some data. We also have an analytics designer mode, where you can add more complex logic to that. You can enhance it with code. You can style it in any way you want so that you can make it really pixel perfect. And there's other unique features in that environment as well, such as alerting. And then finally, we have the presentation mode or the digital boardroom, where you can build a journey through data for your end users. You can use it within operational type of reporting settings. So like if you're having regular meetings to see the state of your business, if you want to go through it by various different dimensions like HR, finance, sales, production, supply chain, it's very, very good for defining those type of navigational paths. And really, with both develop and present, you're talking about a solution overall that allows people to be able to do composable BI. But the problem with this is that effectively, up until now, customers have had to choose upfront which mode they want to work with. And that imposes a cost on them. If they start building a story and then later on they find that they need something from an application, they have to do some rework. And not all of the capabilities of story were available within the digital boardroom. So what we're planning to do is to bring all of these together into a single experience. And the most important thing here is this will only be available in the optimized story experience. So what we want people to do is convert to the optimized story experience. And if they do that, then in Q1, roughly speaking, they will get the developer mode or the application mode automatically. And later on next year, we'll be adding in the digital boardroom capabilities. So the most important thing right now is to start, if you're building any new stories, build them with the optimized story experience. If you've got existing content, convert it. And based on that, later on this year, you've got to have all of these new capabilities which have been added into the story experience, and it'll make it much more easier to work with content in the future. So the second feature that I wanted to talk about today is the optimized data analyzer. The primary reason why we want to talk about this is that it really is a very strategic investment for us. So if we think about the story, which we just talked about, that's the method by which our customers create curated content for their users. So what we often see, I was speaking to a customer last week, and they had built a story which effectively was going to be able to enable them through filters and through various different controls to answer any business question they might have without needing to download data, without needing to go into Excel, without having to use some type of third-party analytics tool. But there are customers who they're not going to be able to answer every question through the story. They're not going to be able to have that type of curated analysis that is perfect for everything. And they need to be able to do self-service data analytics, and they need to be able to do it against very, very large data models. And they're not quite sure what data models their end users are going to work against. In many cases, they have thousands of data models. Data Analyzer is the experience within Analytics Cloud to be able to do that type of analysis. And we released Data Analyzer about 2 years ago, and our customers love the functionality. They love what it can give within Analytics Cloud, but it wasn't always scalable to the largest data models, and it didn't work. It didn't have all of the capabilities that they wanted. So we put a ton of work in last year into reworking the underlying architecture, working very hard on performance and user experience, and adding all types of new capabilities that customers were looking for, and making sure as well that it supports all of the model types and it's fully integrated into the story experience. So a user can start in the story, they can see a piece of data they're interested in, and then they can go into that data and start to work with it and do some standalone analysis. Then they can share that afterwards. And this is the future of self-service in Analytics Cloud. Eventually, we'll add in charting, we'll add in all types of other capabilities, we'll make it available in different environments. And ultimately, what we want to enable people to do is to be able to do any type of self-service against any type of data model of any type of size in a really performant and delightful way. The next feature that, again, is really critically important is the type of new model. And so, again, it's a very strategic investment for SAP. Originally, when Analytics Cloud was released, we had a model for analytics or BI called the analytic model. We had a model for planning called the planning model, which is based on an account model. And we had a type of self-service modeling capability called the data set. And so one of the challenges with that was that the analytic model was very good for analytics and the planning model was very good for planning, but customers didn't want to have two different modeling environments for the same data. And as well as that, the planning model, it wasn't able to scale to the type of data sets that some of our largest customers were using it for. And so about 2 years ago, we released a combined model called a new model that's both an account model and a measure model that can be used for both analytics and for planning. And that has much, much greater performance at scale on larger models. And so over the last couple of years, and particularly this year, we've been gradually adding in capabilities into that new model so that it is an absolute successor to the modeling types that went before. And so this year, we've added in a lot of new capabilities that really have driven it much further down that road, including in that the ability to be able to do multiple account hierarchies, weekly planning, and flexible time handling. So effectively, you can model on different types of calendars and that type of workflow, multilingual support, a lot of functions about calculations, recursive calculations to make it very, very easy to work with type of repetitive formulas within data sets, and ultimately making this into a really a no-brainer for people to, if they want to use a modeling environment within Analytics Cloud, now the new model is the one to use. In parallel with that, we're doing a ton of work to make sure that the new model and all of its capabilities are integrated into the overall SAP ecosystem. We've been working on APIs to make it very easy to extract data from things like workforce planning or workforce analytics and success factors. We're working with the Data Warehouse Cloud team on data integration into the new model. We'll talk about that in a minute. We've also started doing the data import capabilities, so making the new model a replacement for the data set. So effectively, new model now covers all of the various different types of data ingestion that you can do in Analytics Cloud. You know, the vast majority of our customers continue to, for BI, use live models as well. We'll talk about that later on. We're definitely investing in live models, but we really need to continue to invest in new model because, you know, there's a lot of things that are planning use cases. There's a lot of like data integrations that our customers really want us to support, but we've made a huge amount of progress this year, and we think that it will be a significant benefit to our customers. And if you want to get to a more performant Analytics Cloud for planning, you definitely should be using new model for your use cases. One of the other things that I just wanted to talk about a little bit today is the fact that effectively we've got our business technology platform, and analytics and planning is like a core component within that business technology platform. And over time, effectively, what our overall strategy is that, you know, when we originally started off with Analytics Cloud, it was an entirely standalone experience for customers. It was the first data product within SAP that was built natively for the cloud. And the other products that followed it, like Data Warehouse Cloud, Data HANA Cloud, Data Intelligence Cloud, they all effectively built on the foundations of what Analytics Cloud had done first. But over that period of time, the very existence of those products have changed the landscape for customers. And so as we look forward, we really want Analytics Cloud to focus on business intelligence or enterprise analytics, planning, and augmented BI, or helping the consumer to really be able to consume analytics in a very natural way. And we will rely much more in future on Data Warehouse Cloud for self-service data preparation, for data ingestion, for modeling, for semantics, and Data Intelligence Cloud for data quality and for bringing in data and processing it, and HANA Cloud for elasticity, for being able to work with different data types, for being able to scale to the largest use cases. As a result of us relying on that, it means that our customers have a lot more robust set of features to work with when it comes to data management and data ingestion. And it means we get to focus our developers really on the areas where we can add the most value, which is business intelligence, planning, and augmented analytics. And so these products will come much closer together as we go through this journey. And it means as well that our cloud qualities will improve. So we'll be able to work with much greater data sets, data volumes, much more high computational requirements. And over time, this will deliver a huge amount of benefit to our customers. As we do this, one of the things that we've got to do is we've got to improve the integration between these cloud products. And so we're putting a huge amount of investment into this today. So if we look at Data Analytics Cloud and Data Warehouse Cloud earlier this year, effectively, Analytics Cloud is able to consume models from Data Warehouse Cloud, and it's able to ingest data into the planning environment for SAP and non-SAP data sources. So we've got live integration. A huge amount of customers use the two products together. As of from Q4 pretty much and Q1 probably when it will arrive at a lot of customers' instances, we've been working to make Data Warehouse Cloud a much better integrated experience into Analytics Cloud. So what it means is that the models are available within the user experience. You can reuse the Data Warehouse Cloud models from story to story, and it feels much more like a single environment that you're working with. So customers can, access a lot of the Data Warehouse Cloud functionality, and they have all of the analytics. They have much better support for analytics on top of Data Warehouse Cloud. We continue to work with the data ingestion for the planning environment. But what we're working on now is really effectively enabling planning direct on Data Warehouse Cloud models. So when we get to this point, and it'll be somewhere through the middle of next year, it means that customers will have a much simpler overall experience using the two products together. It will feel like a much more native experience. The planning environment will be able to work against much higher scale models using the Data Warehouse Cloud infrastructure. And overall, the total cost of ownership of using those two products from the same portfolio will reduce for customers. And this also means for BI customers, Data Warehouse Cloud has a lot more live SQL and live external data source support. So it means we can support things like Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Azure, and other cloud sources direct live from Analytics Cloud, as well as our own products. One other critical thing is we invest massively in Data Warehouse Cloud, like we mentioned, but we will continue to have a focus on our BPC and BW customers. We're doing a ton of new features for both of these environments this year. We expect this to really accelerate next year, and we're going to continue to invest in these areas. So one of the really important things for us in the last couple of years is we've been investing in a lot of very strategic items, including the new model, which we talked about, including the optimized story experience, including the data analyzer. And as a result of that, we haven't been able to deliver as many features to the type of story experience and to the end user experience as we'd like. Now, because of that, we had a lot of influence items that have been around for a while, and we needed to start to put a lot of focus on closing those off. And we have this year. This year, we'll close off 16 of the top 40 items. Next year, we'll close off some more. This includes some of the most important items that customers have been asking for. We want you to continue voting on them, and we will continue to invest in them in the next while. The other thing, of course, is the TechEd is a great place to build your career, to be able to get more content. I hope you're able to take advantage of it. And what I really want to say is thanks very much for spending the time with us today. It's been a really, really great thing to be able to talk to you in this way.